Yeah.
That needs a good no.
Yeah, that definitely needs a good no.
I had an experience of mansplaining through the week.
Oh, no.
I had a plague of wasps, so I had to call the pest man.
Oh, wow.
I know. Oh, it's the season for it, really.
Mm.
Above in the ceiling. Anyway, the guy answered the phone, and he wouldn't let me say what the problem was. Finish the sentence to say what the problem were and where the wasps were, and also what the treatment was, and was the treatment toxic, and also how long would it be before I knew the wasp nest was dead, that kind of stuff. So that doesn't sound like, what did that take me, less than a minute?
Right.
He wouldn't let me say any of these things, right? So how I dealt with it was, I said, it seems to me that you're mansplaining. And he said to me, what's that? I said, maybe you need to look it up, which is a bit unfair of me. But I
actually would have said the same thing. But Google it.
Yeah, Google it. And I said to him, you seem a bit sensitive to other people trying to express themselves.
Yeah.
And as though it says something about you. And I'm telling you now, you're not listening.
Yes.
And so he went on the phone, and he said, well, you tell me.
No, I love it. Don't you love it?
So I did tell him. And then he gave me a correct answer.
That's what happens when you listen.
It was simply done. But it was a perfect example of just easy. And it was like, no, this is my wasp problem. I really need some clear information.
It is your, yeah. I mean, how would he know what he's attending to if he doesn't hear the problem?
That's exactly right. So he's making one wasp problem the same as every single person's wasp problem.
Oh, dear.
And this is a massive nest.
Oh,
hundreds of wasps. Hundreds and hundreds of wasps.
That's so dangerous. How does it happen?
And I thought they must be paper wasps because I thought they were pretty docile. But it turns out I'm a wasp whisperer.
Oh, no.
They were European wasps.
Oh, wow.
I know.
So they're gone, right?
They've gone.
Good.
They're all, unfortunately, Buddhist aside, they're dead.
Good. Yeah, but I think there is a tendency for men to do that, and you do have to call them out on it.
You do.
I've got a doctor who does that, and he did it to me. He did it to me recently when I was talking to him. I didn't want to take HRT for, my mother died of breast cancer, so I'm not really a good candidate to take HRT. And he said to me, well, what about antidepressants? And I said, I'm not depressed. Why do I need antidepressants? That was that stage. And he said, well, look, I know you're going to sit here and tell me you know your body. And he was being so condescending.
Of course he'd know your body.
Yes, of course. And I said, well, I do know my body. And with all due respect, I know my body better than you know my body because it's my body. But you're the doctor. So I gave it back to him. I had to.
Yeah, you do.
You have to, because that is a saying no. Yeah, that is a pushback. That is I'm not going to accept that from you.
And it's also he needs to be better at how he speaks to you about antidepressants.
Yeah.
It needs to be far more sophisticated conversation.
I was so flippant. He was, I know you don't like to take anything. I know you've never taken anything. And I said, but at that time I didn't have depression. So I didn't see the need for it.
Yeah.
When I started to get depressed, I did go to him and he explained that the antidepressant that he was prescribing was actually used for women who couldn't take HRT. So it helped the menopause symptoms as well. So great. So it's a benefit. But at that time, I didn't need it. But yeah, I think that we have to, we have to be in the driver's seat when it comes to us. We just have to. And we teach people how to treat us in what we accept and what we don't accept.
Completely. And the buck stops with us. We can't expect the world to be nicer, better, and other humans as well, because they are what and who they are.
Yeah.
Only we can be different in how we deal with that. And sometimes it might mean saying goodbye to a relationship.
Yeah, definitely.
Or putting it on the back burner, or reducing contact with people.
Yeah, and that's okay too.
And it's fine.
I know, but people struggle with that. They go, well, if I don't respond to my friend, well, you can respond and just say that I need some time out, and that lets your friend know that you're just taking some time out. And then in that space, make a decision whether or not you're going to move forward,
Exactly, yeah.
So
it's amazing how hard we make it for ourselves.
I know, but I just think it all stems from people having the courage, the confidence, and then it's kind of like the chicken and the egg, because the more that you do it, the more confident you become.
I've got quotes in here from all different walks of life.
You have. And I love that.
From the ancient Greeks.
Emily Dickinson, I know.
To Dr. Seuss.
The power of the good no. Don't you know that no is the wildest word we can consign to language? It's also a sentence.
That's right.
So, and if you don't want to say no, focus on what you'd rather do. So I always say, I'm happy to do A, B, C, and D.
Yeah, give alternatives.
Yeah.
And that's about being diplomatic, and because you don't want to kill people off.
Yeah.
But you saying
no.
But a classic one is people say, "Oh, can I squeeze that pimple?" People, do you know how many women do that?
No.
A lot. Women do it a lot.
To who? To other women?
To other women.
Oh.
Or even children or other people.
Right,
Oh, you got a pimple there. Can I squeeze that pimple?
Yes.
It's like, no.
To a partner,
No.
I can understand. But yes, I've never had any friend of mine
And if you're in the bathroom together, but in a social event, it's no.
Absolutely.
It's no. And yes, it's the particular, well, that gets us into relationships, doesn't it?
Yes, and that's okay too, because
and intimacy. Yeah.
Yes.
Because and families, and particularly
well, family would be a big thing for people, because people are often enmeshed in the original dynamic of their family. You often see, like, women go back to their house where they were raised and they become infants. They're infantilized by their family. It's like, so they struggle in those kind of environments to say no to mum, to say no to dad.
That's
right.
Well, this is last week. A friend had asked me for a book for a work colleague of hers. So she bought a book, gave it to the work colleague, and this was the work colleague told her to tell me something. She said that she read the book, she devoured the book, and she acted on the book with the good note towards her mother.
Oh, wow.
And she said she and was able to stand up to it and did it, and came back to work and said that it had revolutionized her life.
Well, it probably did.
And I think it was because what the book did was gave her permission. It's got backup in here.
Yeah.
It backs you up. It's got that's all it is a backup, and it backs up your position. And she hadn't felt backed up before, even in the world around her or in herself. Right. So it wasn't the book that did it. She did it. But it backed her up, and she said it's changed everything.
Oh, it does, though.
Yeah,
but it does.
Yeah,
it empowers you. It gives you. It highlights for you that you have agency to change everything in your life. And again, you don't need to say the word no to mean no.
No. It's more, and then that's right. It's a refusal or I suppose it is. It's a refusal or a negation, let's say, that's got an option.
Yeah,
it's got an option behind it.
But it's. I feel like it all stems from self-respect. If what you're saying in saying no is that my needs are as important as yours,
and that's what it was for her. This girl.
Yeah.
Her mother ruled her life, and she was a slave to the mother.
Wow.
And the mother had gotten used to it, and she allowed it to happen, and the brother backed it up.
Wow.
Because the family, the brother didn't have to do any work then, because the sister did. And that can keep somebody in line. Do you know, I didn't know this, but this was many, many years ago now. This was somebody I was seeing. Now, the first daughter in the family was an Italian family, Sicilian family. It had gone back 5 generations as far as she knew, that the oldest daughter was the slave of the family.
Oh, my
goodness. So that older daughter didn't marry, stayed there, looked after, really was the mother's assistant for the whole family. And the rest could go off and do their lives and marry and have kids, but she was the slave to it 5 generations.
Oh, I believe that. Yeah. There is some really interesting dynamics in all families, and there's always dysfunction in all families. And I say that to my children all the time. Every family. You look at the royals and you can see dysfunction. It's the nature of family. But yeah, there's also specific relational dynamics that are kept in place to keep the status quo going. And when you shake that, you know, that becomes problematic for people
And
in families.
It gives such possibility to the future.
Oh, it does. Absolutely.
That it started with this Italian family, I imagine, contingent on starvation.
Oh, that is.
Or, do you know what I mean? Impoverishment.
Right.
So you used members of the family to cooperate on feeding and bringing up the family type of thing.
Wow.
And so they used to do that with daughters. One of the daughters would be the one who would be the housekeeper, would look, you'd use them as staff, I suppose, to keep the family going. But the thing is that enculturation, it's no longer needed in, let's say, modern times.
Yeah.
But that dynamic goes through. And it's the same as any group. The first group is the family. Other groups, organizations function the same way.
Yeah.
With cultures that become established in an organization that need to know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think is happening with cultures? Because I think cultures are the ones, work cultures and organizations, they're the ones that really need the help from the top down.
It's the top down. Fish rots from the head down. And it means, I think, that leadership needs to be
changed. Yeah.
Rather than the bottom line being the dollar. Oh God, yeah, you need to make a profit.
But it starts from the top.
But it has to be an ethos that's believed and enacted from the top.
Egalitarianism, I say. I know organisations don't believe
True.
that.
Yeah, no, yeah. Well, that's right. And also bravery. An organisation needs to be brave enough to deal with some of the endemic problems in an organisation.
So give examples of what problems happen in organisations.
Let's say that at middle management, so the top doesn't know about it. Right. In middle management, there is, there are people who are like conducting their own business, using the resources of the organisation and filtering it into their external business.
Oh, wow.
And that happens. It's unethical.
It's so fraudulent.
And they have it, yes. And they rationalize it as being okay.
Oh, wow.
And they're doing that. People around them know they're doing that. And someone else over here goes, good idea. I might do that too. So when you've got two of them doing it, and the others kind of, we've got a no dobbing culture in this country.
Yeah.
Can't dob.
That's the problem with the culture in Australia.
It's a non-dobbing one.
Yeah.
The good no says, bugger that, you've got to stand up for your own values.
But you've got to stand up for what is right.
That's
right. Every human being deserves to be respected, and you can't, long gone are the days where organisations can have senior management refer to themselves as I'm the boss, do as I say, not as I do. They're gone those days.
Oh, you can't have it.
But you'd be surprised how many people still do that.
I know they do.
Yeah. You'd be surprised.
And there's other examples of that, even on a smaller level, like just bitchiness and picking on the new person or the youngest one or the oldest one. Those kinds of things in organisations. Yeah.
It's so nasty.
And it comes from that passive aggression that weeds its way along, undermining people around. Because that's happened maybe, let's say, in the family. That's how family operates. It comes into the workplace. You just need one or two seeds, wasps, to make a big nest, and you've got a problem.
Wow.
And you see it a lot in organisations. So, because my PhD was on institutions, and oh my God, it's so true about if you have an ethos or a culture that the whole group shares, that's there in the job interview.
Right.
This is how we operate here, and this is what we believe. Sign on the line if you agree with this or not.
Right.
Or not, no, the job's not for you. But organisations that didn't have that or had problems that were ignored time and time again, that's when you had problems and staff being sacked. In order to get rid of the problem, you sack people rather than manage the problem as well in the middle. So that was just in psychiatric organisations, let's say, who were psychoanalytically, that was the theory that was running what a lot of people were doing in there. And so these are supposed to be, these are, people who really believe in what they're doing. So these errors weren't conscious. they were what people do. So they had to become self-reflective.
What you would call symptoms?
Yes.
They're symptoms, yeah.
And they became self-reflective, and then they started to write about it. And that's how come that information came into my PhD.
Right.
Was because of those reflections, which was valuable, which was so fabulous. But how do you change organizations? It's a big one.
You from the top, I think.
Has to be.
Has to be from the top, because a cancer is, if you have one cancer cell, it can be,
That's right.
metastatic. It'll ruin the whole body.
Yeah.
So I just think that this is one thing that organisations need to adhere to, And we saw it with Qantas, with that Joyce guy. I mean, he walks away with 14, 15 million, and people are getting kicked out of their jobs and can't afford to stay in their homes.
Oh, it's just the hypocrisy.
It's so insidious and disgusting.
Yeah.
And
I know. The CEO, that's the other thing. At the top, you've got the CEO who's got all the money.
Yeah.
And then the real people who are doing the coalface work are all down here as though they're separate. Cut off the head. But as somebody said, as this guy said, you kill the queen bee and all the workers have no reason for living.
Oh, dear.
That's the sad thing. So you have to have a healthy queen.
Absolutely.
In a colony.
Yes, you
using
do.
that metaphor.
You absolutely do. Absolutely do. Because that affects and impacts everybody else. And there's no point in just, it can't just be an ideology. It has to be a practical thing of having someone that's healthy at the top, so that then that filters out through to everybody else. And people are held accountable to that ethos.
Accountability is important.
Yeah.
And that has to be upkept. I always go back to the pink bats thing. Remember they had the government was giving grants for people to put pink bats in their ceilings to make houses more,
cooler,
and also warmer.
Warmer, right?
What's it called?
Installation.
Insulation. That's right.
Insulation. Yes.
It's like this happens as you get older.
Yeah. Insulation. Yep.
Insulation in the ceiling. So what happened was they started to contract it out, and the contractors started doing dodgy jobs. So, and it ended up, I think there was a fire, a lot of damage. I don't think anybody killed, I don't think. But then that was withdrawn, the offer. So there was this chance to have insulated buildings, but because dodgy people were taking advantage of it, and I'll bet the same thing's happening with solar panels.
Yeah.
And anything like this, human beings tend to lean towards
what's easiest
cheating.
For them. Yeah, what's easiest for them.
And what can give them the most profit?
Yeah.
Ripping off. So there's, that lack of integrity. We expect integrity, but accountability has to be there to make sure humans are.
But aren't they the same? They're part and parcel, right? If you have integrity, then you take accountability. That's the reality. That's right. And I feel like in Australia, because this culture is very different. Look, I love Australian culture. I was raised here. But the culture here is also very reluctant to, a lot of people are not conscious of another person. And that's the lack of integrity. So if you're going to do the right thing, do the right thing when no one's watching. That's what I mean.
I mean, compassion for others.
Yeah, but also it's the idea of, I'll take care of myself before I take care of someone else. But in doing that, this is I feel this is the reason that the world's a mess.
That's selfishness.
Yes.
Yes.
Like on a large scale, that's what we see happening all the time.
That's exactly. I take care of my own.
Yeah.
Rather than, wait a minute, this is your own.
Yes.
All around you, the plants, the animals,
the world
the trees.
is your own. Yes, and this is, it's beyond the body. I think most people are identified with the body. And that's how they see themselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
that's why, and that's why that's another reason at that broader level, existential level, where we need to say no more clearly to those things.
Yeah.
And not to be shut down, because quick as you blink, it gets shut down.
Oh yeah. I mean, I've got this thing. I always say to the kids, like, if you get a visceral sense by something, then it's something you should respond to. Right? Yes. Not aggressively, no hostile. But one thing that really irks me is a couple of things: racism, and the other one is when I see someone desecrating the world, like throwing rubbish on the floor, or just I said to my husband, I went for a walk the other day, and I said to him, I saw this kid throw his lunch on the ground, and no joke, there was a rubbish bin right there. So I tapped him on the shoulder, and I said, did you not see the rubbish bin right in front of you? I said, we all have to live in this world. Put the rubbish bin in the rubbish. It's just a simple thing you have to do.
That's right.
To make it easier for everyone.
And that's the good no.
That's the good no.
You just did it straight.
Yeah.
Good, perfect example.
But this is what I mean by, you know, this won't affect me, that won't affect me. Everything affects everything. There's ripple effects with everything. I feel anyway, you know. So
and we have to live with discomfort.
There's a certain amount of tension, you mean, the anxiety, yes.
And we have to live with that, and about humans who don't do it like that, the kid who then repeatedly chucks the rubbish.
Right.
We have to work out how do we manage repeat offenders and stuff like that. Right. And I'm thinking about how predictable it is that we've got some things coming out of Russia. People are being killed if they disagree.
Oh, yeah, yes.
So if people say no, they're being killed. How brave are they to keep saying no?
Yes.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, I saw, what's the Russian guy that they've given poison to? And he's...
Alexei. I call him Alexis.
Okay, so Alexis, I saw his wife last night on the news speaking out, and she's so courageous.
Because she might be the one who's going to be poisoned next, or shot through the back of the head, and then the other guy, who, the Russian pilot, who exited Russia, he's dead. Yeah, he was killed yesterday, the day before. Yes. So you've got people saying no, I'm out of here. I don't agree with this, and they are killed.
Well, even people putting flowers for Alexei's death. You know, some of those people say
they were arrested.
That they were afraid they were going to be arrested.
So it is a big thing, and it starts small. But if you develop a sense, the difference between right and wrong, and what you're wanting to stand for, because we have to stand for things.
Absolutely.
What we believe in.
Otherwise, we just accept anything.
We become wishy-washy.
Yeah.
We become jellyfish.
Yeah.
In the world, and we already have lost, our what do you call it, ethical fitness.
Yeah.
I think because we have an easy life, we have expectations of things, people live well.
This is what I think, Belinda, this is what I think happened with the no vote for the Indigenous Australians. I think that the fact that they couldn't stand up and say, no, I won't accept this anymore, the land does rightfully belong to them. To me, this is an extension of what I believe about Australian culture, is that most people go, it doesn't affect me. It's not part of me. I'm not Indigenous. But learn about it. Ask about it. Be curious about it.
This is a really good question. Because, I've learned a lot about the no vote now, because I stand up and I say, and what did you vote for? I ask randomly. And I've come across, more so than any other time, because, in Victoria, people are quite Labor-oriented in their voting.
Yeah.
So I asked the big question, friends, family, particularly people who are closest. Oh, my God, I'd say 50-50 people voted no.
No, I know.
But in my acquaintance, which is a rare thing.
Yes, I know.
And I found... just recently, people who I really respect, who you'd think would be really lefty, they'd voted no for two different reasons. And it had to do with changing the constitution. The problem wasn't about literally the vote. It was they didn't want the constitution changed. They wanted another process.
Oh, yeah.
So they voted no. And I think there's something around a vote like that says, well, it's communicated to me, no against Aboriginal people.
Yeah.
I'm making it very broad, but it's not broad. But that's how it felt.
That's how it felt for me.
And
too.
they don't, and I don't know that they see it that way when they said no. They saw it as political for some reason.
Why would it be political if you understand fundamentally that the land is part of their existence? It has such a sacred relevance for their culture.
Do you know what they did? For the first time in history, all the mobs got together at Uluru. They all got together and decided something. Now, that's rare. It gives me goosebumps thinking about it. Yeah. They made something, they had a voice that gets said no to.
Yeah.
Is how I saw it. But these other people said that we don't know what your process is. If you want to change the constitution, people, give us more information. So there was the government let something down because people wanted more information. They could have found it.
Correct.
They could have looked for it and found it.
The onus is on you, right?
And it's on them.
Go educate yourself.
It's
if you're leaning towards one way
That's
and
right.
this isn't consistent with the way that
That's
you
right.
would generally vote, find the information, do the research. But I feel like this is how I initially, when I heard no, I felt a real sorrow. I had a tremendous sorrow because it was an affront for me in the sense that what would it do for you to recognize that they own this land for thousands of years before you even came here on a boat or your ancestors came here on a boat? The sacredness of this land, and I had this conversation with someone who I have a lot of respect for recently, and it got really prickly. And I could see she was getting very defensive.
Yeah, people do.
And I said to her,
it's just questioning. Yeah.
I'm asking you because in the same context that we had this conversation, this particular person said to me, so what's your stance on what's happening in Palestine? I said, that's a very separate issue. And in regards to Palestine and Israel, what I would vote for is vote for peace. That's what I want to happen there. Because nobody wins in war. Nobody wins in war. But here we're talking about a land that is part of their intrinsic culture and the fabric of who they are and how they identify themselves. The land for Indigenous Australians, as far as I know, represents creation. It represents birth. It represents food. It represents their whole being.
Dreaming.
Yes, it's all about that. And she said, well, but she gave the reason to vote no was that, it would affect, that they would basically, to summarize and paraphrase what she said, what I understood was that it would mean that the constitution would be changed and those delegates that have been put in place to change what's happening for Indigenous Australians will be pilfering the money and it wouldn't go to them. That's what I understood.
So miss the point, isn't it?
Listen, but then I said to her, Belinda, I said, do you know what's happening in 2024 in Perth in regards to some sacred land of theirs? Do you know that? And she said, no. And I said, the mining industry is mining land that is sacred, belongs to them. They have sacred rights. Today, 2024, go and do some research on it.
Exactly.
We need
and it's not only to do with land too. It had to do with Aboriginal people have got the lowest health outcomes.
I know.
And it's like, how can we better that? You've put all this energy and time into it. How can we better it? You better it from within the group.
Yes.
From them have their say.
Yes.
And that's the whole point of say. But anyway, the biggest issue about the good no was these were two people. I had the conversation with, I was surprised there were no voters and I'm a yes voter. And I said, I was being humorous around it because I think that's a good way to enter into a tricky argument.
Yes.
And so I said,
very quickly, yeah.
So I talked to them about Uluru and what happened there. And I said, what do you think that means, for the Aboriginal people, for there to be a no vote? And they started to get, whoa, like this. So obviously they've argued with other people before. And I said, we don't need to argue around it. I'm curious about what your opinion. They didn't care about mine, by the way. But they don't. No, they don't.
Because I had the same experience.
And they cared about so they were arguing that and I said, we don't need to break up a friendship over this, okay?
Yes.
Okay, I'm just being clear about it. We can beg to differ.
Yes.
We can have different views and love each other.
Yes.
And still be able to talk about something that's tricky.
Yeah.
Was my take on it, which is perfect for here. Well, what we're talking about is if we can actually manage to do that, that will make a major difference. Because does it hurt? It's not, I found it difficult that it happened.
It was. We both agreed it was prickly, it was difficult. And it was recognising that we have difference in opinion and that difference in opinion doesn't make us aliens. It can still
doesn't mean you hate the person either.
And you still have that respect.
And they were influenced by other people too.
Oh, isn't that always the way? Do your research. I mean, it was a very...
Do your own personal research.
It was a Trumpian-style campaign, which is one of the things that I said to this person, is that it was a Trumpian-style campaign, and I see you as somebody incredibly intelligent.
Oh, scaremongering.
Yeah.
Scaremongering was the worst thing. It was the idea was, let's start a conversation around this. It's not we're changing the conversation,
Yeah.
the constitution tomorrow.
I know, but isn't this how human beings are?
Yes,
either
and that's
fear
the example of it.
or love. Like when I told you I was reading Course in Miracles, and it's the two
Yes.
emotions. You're either driven by fear, which is egoic,
Yes,
because the ego is around competition
and
protection, yeah, and protect your position, and you believe you subscribe to attack, right? So you understand that the ego is about attack, so you then attack. That's the ego, or love, and it's your choice what you want to do. But I just feel deeply moved by the conservation of Indigenous land and the protection of it, and the recognizing that it does belong to them and not us, for a very different reason than we were talking about Palestine or about Israel. It's a very different thing.
It's about invasion.
Yeah.
And terra nullius. It's like when you read more and more around, I mean, we weren't there in those times.
No.
But you read around that kind of thing, you see, this is a complete, well, it's an invasion. It was an invasion.
Absolutely.
And then wanting to
take kids away from their
absorption.
Parents.
Yes. And take away any power. Yeah. It was a moral injustice.
Oh, totally. That could be another episode that we have. But I hope that we've given you some nugget of wisdom, a pearl of wisdom on this episode of Food for Therapy. Thank you, Belinda Mackie, for joining me today.
You're most welcome.
Thank you for shedding some light on the wonderful The Good No book depository. You can find this anywhere, and the social media links will be on our page. If you need anything or you want to shoot me an email, I would be very happy to respond to any emails. Please do so, and do so respectfully. Don't forget to visit our YouTube, and don't forget to subscribe. I'm Marie-Therese Walden, signing off for Food for Therapy for now. Bye for now. Thanks, Belinda.
You're welcome.